Good morning, everyone. It's again July the 11th, 2026. I'm going to put a second part up on my first part to the video that had just put up, and I'm still not finished with the homeless because I have a lot of questions that need to be answered, and one of them is on the water. And even though the woman, as I said, she came in, she was trying to steal a drink. There's questions like, why could they not give her a glass of water, seeing her in the condition she was? They were just going to rush her out the door. They didn't give two hoots, as far as I'm concerned. And, these big grocery chains, what we're paying as citizens out there, and the high cost of groceries, you think that why couldn't they afford to just give her the groceries, these big chains, to give her a little bit of water before she left? So that was a question I had. And sometimes I believe that our animals are better looked after than we look after our fellow human beings, because even we have a big, huge pet population and dog population down here in Lower Town. And although Heidi is my service dog, there's a lot of other pets. And out of courtesy, a lot of the restaurants in the Byward Market and that, they put out water dishes for the dogs. So they have quick access to water. Heidi knows all the watering holes, and I mean, just to show you how good some of the restaurants are, I've walked by, and every so often they change the water, but when it's not just water, they put ice cubes in the water, so it's nice and cold for the dogs when they come along and they need to drink. And of course, Heidi, she knows every water hole along the route home as well through the Byward Market, and it's always grateful. So, there's kind of a difference here that I'm seeing, like, we treat our animals like this, and we're treating our human beings like this, and it's a really big question here on this. And then I was talking about the housing for them, and the way I look at it, and this is why I definitely advocate for supportive housing, but I also think, how is this supportive housing supposed to look? I mean, we're having this model, which I've put up, and what the Shepherds are going to do, and what the Dunn House was in Toronto, about having everyone housed in the upper floors, and the first floor all the services. And I'm thinking, and for various reasons, I'm thinking, well, we have a lot of people in wheelchairs for accessibility problems. Yes, it's nice to have an elevator to go up, but then I'm thinking another thing. It would be better, much better, to put those who are in wheelchairs especially, and with really hard mobility problems, would be better on the first floor, and put the services in the basement, and then just have an office on the first floor regulating the traffic coming in and out when they need something, and they can just call down to the basement. And the other reason is, I've seen things that have happened over the years, and this is part of my wisdom, whether it was a nursing home, for an example, or even an apartment building, where older people, if they've got mobility issues with the wheelchairs and that, and there's a big fire, where some have been left behind and the firemen can't get to them easily, where I could see it would be preferable to put wheelchairs, those really super handicapped like that, on the first floor. So if there is a fire, our firemen can get to the residents very quickly and hopefully get them out, and then put them each floor according to their mobility issues. So some that have more mobility issues, because I know that those who with the chairs and had even walkers and mobility issues, in a fire they had to use a stairwell, and they didn't know how they were going to get people in and out. And if the elevator, there was only one elevator anyhow, and there was other times when the one elevator was out of service, getting these people on the upper floors up and down was really difficult to do. So I think we need to look at something in that way. And then the other thing that I have found is, because her wheelchair, her electric wheelchair, was running out of juice at that time, I ran into her. Where does she charge it? And because she'd been out for, like I said, that long length of time, all day, on this wheelchair. And I think this is kind of crazy, because I've seen something, I've had a personal experience of another wheelchair, electric wheelchair, running out of juice in the middle of winter, and I'll explain this. I was taking an elderly gentleman and it was, I guess, around Christmas time, and there was a bit of snow on the ground, and his electric wheelchair ran out of juice. He was nowhere near a charger. It was in the evening in the Byward Market, ironically. There was nothing open at that time, and I couldn't just leave him on the street, and there was hardly anybody driving, anybody around, and it was pretty much deserted. And I'm thinking, oh, well, I can't leave him. So I went to the corner, and luckily I saw a car coming. Well, I flagged the car down. Fortunately, that car just happened to be one of our bylaw officers. And was I ever relieved to see him and explain what was going on. So he immediately got on his radio and trying to get help, because the gentleman whose wheelchair ran out of juice said, well, I can't get a hold of Care Canada, and that's one of the organizations or services that for the handicap where you can buy the wheelchairs, and that they probably would have been able to pick them up or do something. So fortunately, our bylaw officer got a hold of his office, or whoever, his dispatch. So they ended up calling Transpo, and he wasn't hooked up with Transpo, so he said, I won't be picked up. I'm not hooked up with them. And I guess the dispatch called Transpo, explained the situation to them, and a radio back to the bylaw officer that a Paro bus was going to come pick him up. And sure enough, this Paro bus came and picked him up. The driver was really nice. It was a driver who was apparently had just finished his last run of the evening, and he heard that there was a person in trouble and needing help. So he came and responded, and it was interesting. This was about, I think, the winter of 2011 that this happened, and it was quite a chore because this was one of the older buses at that time for Paro Transpo, and they didn't have the ramps up at that time. They had to get a wheelchair in. You had a lift at the side of the vehicle that lifted the chair up and into the vehicle. But he very nicely managed to drive us home, and it was wonderful because then he pushed him up the ramp at his place and got him home safely. So it was like, whew, that was good, because I couldn't leave him out in the cold. It was starting to snow again, and you know, what do you do? And I didn't really have a phone on me, and his phone had also died. So I was just lucky that I thought, okay, I'm going to have to flag somebody down on the street here, a vehicle, if I could find one. And fortunately, the bylaw officer saved the day that day. Thank goodness he came along. And then I'm thinking, you know, when I'm talking in the other video, well, where do these people charge their electric chairs if they run out of juice? Do they plug into the say Rideau Center? Can they plug in somewhere in that? And then I'm thinking, well, there's so many people ending up in wheelchairs and have electric wheelchairs. What do they do? And then I'm also thinking back, okay, we have many different things that we've done. We have electric cars, plug-in stations for electric cars. We can plug in our phones and recharge them. There's stations all over the place. Maybe we should think about, and especially in the Byward Market area, putting in some place where a designated place for where electric wheelchairs can park and replug into the wall or whatever, so that they know where they can go, so they can get the chair recharged, so they don't run into a situation like this. So there's so many different things that I can think of that need to be done with the homeless and the most vulnerable. And especially, this is one of the things that I can see is the other problem with the wheelchairs, whether they're the push wheelchairs or the electric chairs, is what we've been complaining about for a long time, that there's accessibility for wheelchairs. I mean, yes, in the Rideau Center, I know she was in there. Maybe she charged up in the morning. I don't know. But she seemed to be okay when I saw her that in the morning. And then it's just kind of crazy to look at the situation and wonder where do they charge up for the rest of the day? You know, do they plug in at one of these outreach programs or the drop-in centers? Where do you go? So I'm thinking maybe this is what we have to do, is maybe go beyond ourselves, because when I look at accessibility, there's only a few places that are accessible, like Rideau Center, the grocery store where she was, wheelchair accessible. So of course she'd automatically go in there and try and see if she could get a drink, even if she had to steal a drink. She was in desperate need of a drink at that time. So you've got balancing between theft and what needs to be humanity, humanely done. That's the word I'm looking for, sorry. And how do you balance this out? And I find this really, really crazy. I think our society really needs to take a look at ourselves in the mirror and start thinking of ways that we can help and make sure that people are looked after properly. And when I look at, because I've been on the registry for years too, when I was put on the registry, and then I got this place, so I was able to take myself off the registry at that point. But, you know, and you've got maybe 15,000, 16,000 people right now, and it's first come, first served basis, and then they say, well, yeah, you can be put on a priority list. Well, where is the priority list for this young lady that I ran into? She obviously cannot look after herself properly. That's quite obvious. She's doing the best she can. People are really downplaying her for trying to do the best that she can. And I'm looking, gosh, a bottle of juice, and she's was she going to be charged or whatever? Well, I just stepped in there. I just knew I had to step in because I suspected what the problem was with her on the diabetes. And it really kind of upset me to see that, because that could easily happen to me, that I could be downed with it. And that's why I have Heidi being trained to alert me for my diabetes levels, and she's got absolutely nothing. But I also know how I feel when I'm high. My sugars are higher, my sugars are low. Except in the middle of the night when my sugars go really down under 5. Then I start shaking and I'm starting to get into problems. So this is why I need Heidi to wake me up. And I mean wake me up, because when I'm asleep, I'm dead. She's got, and she has to make sure she wakes me up in the middle of the night so I can get up and check my blood sugar level. And she didn't have any way of checking her blood sugar levels, that's for certain, that I could see. Where she was in this wheelchair. So what I'm saying, people, is we really need to talk about things and get our politicians on board, even if we have to use, as my mother used to say, sometimes the best thing to get a politician is the women used to have those old long hat pins that you stuck in. Maybe we need to stick a hat pin in the politicians to move them along a little bit to realize what's going on. Although I can't complain. The city's been doing the best it can, really. But it's the 3 levels of government that really need to work cooperatively together. So it's not just blamed on one level of government. All 3 levels have to work together on this. But we really need to be more, we need to show some kind of compassion. And to me that day, stealing a bottle like that, that almost could have cost her life if they took the bottle out of her hands and she wasn't able to get a drink. So that could have been really a terrible situation at the same time, because and obviously I think her sugar levels were probably low because of the way she was acting, and how I feel when my sugar levels are low. I suspected that's what it was. So I'm going to leave it everyone today there, and please stop and think. And when you approach people, make sure it's not just an overdose or they're on drugs. It could be something else. So don't just automatically assume something when it may not be what you're assuming. So I'm going to leave it there, everyone. Take care, watch your surroundings, and we'll talk again soon. Bye-bye.